Well, move over potatoes because we're cooking with parsnips today. Hi, I'm Judy Matuski. I'm a registered dietitian with Athens Nutrition, and I am also a culinary nutritionist. So we are making whipped or pureed parsnips, and I am just trying to bring a lot of different root vegetables back to our plate. I feel like we're kind of in a rut with carrots and sweet potatoes and potatoes, but there's so many more out there, and parsnips they're just absolutely delicious. They're kind of like a little sweet, maybe a little sweeter than a carrot, and they also have a little bit of I'm going to say like a little pepperiness to them, but they are such an incredible vegetable that you can start using just to add more variety. Nutritionally, they're similar to a potato, a little higher in fiber, so that's actually pretty nice, but very similar. So I wanted to just walk you through a little bit of what I did ahead for the video, or for the Facebook Live today. And you're going to want to cook the parsnips. You don't have to peel them. You can just scrub them really well and then just chop them and then cook them just like you would potatoes. I did peel mine a little bit, but you don't necessarily have to. A lot of the flavor is sort of just right underneath the skin. So you're going to take your parsnips and you're going to, just like you would a carrot, we're going to take the end off. And if you are saving, trying to reduce on food waste, and you can save all these little scraps in a freezer bag. And just if you have room in your freezer, and if you are motivated to make stock from these, it's great. But that's certainly up to you. And then you're going to want to slice these in about, 3/4 of an inch thick slices. I had to actually get out a measuring tape to measure. I can never guess is it 1 inch, 3/4 of an inch? Doesn't really matter. The point being is that you want them all sliced similar, just like you would potatoes, because you want them to cook about the same amount of time. So I'm just slicing these down in, generally speaking, 3/4 of an inch or so slices. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to take the parsnips and they're going to just go into a pot. That you're going to fill this with water just above the parsnips. So, I have some already cooked in here that I drained the water, but you want to put them in and then cover them with just enough water just to cover them, not a lot of extra water. And also a tablespoon of kosher salt, which does sound like a lot, but you're going to not use nearly all of that. But you want that because we're using the liquid that the parsnips cook in to help flavor them when we whip them. And because we are not adding cream, we are not adding butter like you would to potatoes, because there is such a natural creaminess to parsnips and such a wonderful flavor and a richness that they naturally have that you don't need to add all that, which is great. So I went ahead and I cooked these. They cooked down in about 15 minutes. I think mine even cooked quicker than that. You just want them to get to the point where they're pretty soft, fork tender, just like you would if you're making potatoes. And then what you don't want to do is you don't want to drain off the water, because we need that water. So what I did is that I just poured them in a colander and saved the water in a bowl. Or as far as how we're going to whip them, you can do it two different ways. I am going to do it in a food processor just because I have it out. My cousin was saying, she always does hers in using an immersion blender. So if you use the immersion blender, you don't need the food processor. You can just go ahead and whip them right in the pot, but I'm going to go ahead and do it in the food processor. So I already cooked these parsnips. They took a little less than 15 minutes to get soft. So again, very fast. You bring them to a boil, put the lid on, turn it down to a simmer, then just check them with your fork until they get tender, and they really cook up, I think, faster than even potatoes do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my Cuisinart over, my food processor, and we're just going to go ahead and put them right into the food processor. All of them go straight in. Again, if you're using a immersion blender, then you can just go ahead and keep them in the pot and add the liquid to the pot as you're using your blender. These are all going in, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the lid on, and I'm going to just roughly chop them up a little bit. So just a couple little pulses here, and then I'm going to take the feed tube off, and I'm going to pour in probably about half of a cup. Just start with about a half a cup. You might use a full cup of liquid. It just kind of depends. You're starting with about 1.5 pounds of parsnips, but I don't always have the weight on my parsnips. I'm usually eyeballing it, so you might need a little more liquid and a little less, depending on how many you're using. So I put in about a half of a cup of the liquid that they cooked in with, it's a little salted water, and it also has the flavor of the parsnips. Now I'm just gonna blend this up, and I'm gonna just pulse it and blend it. So you can take it to a really creamy stage, or you can have it a little bit more textured. I like them more textured, so I'm not gonna take it down to the point where it's super creamy. And then just wanna take a peek. I think I could use a little bit more liquid. So I'm gonna add, just a splash or two more. And then that's really what you're doing. So we're just, until we get it till we get it where we think it's looking pretty good. And, all right, and then if we wanna take a peek, that is probably the texture we're looking for. So let me take it out for you. And I like it, like I said, I don't want it super creamy. I just want it to have a little bit of the texture from the parsnips. So you can just put it in your bowl, super fast. They look like mashed potatoes, but they just have so much more flavor than white potatoes, in my opinion. And then you can do one of two things. You can dollop it with a little bit of butter if you'd like. If you just want a little extra richness on the top, that's great. You can also, it's not coming off my knife. You could just also take a little bit of olive oil and just do a little drizzle of olive oil, but you don't really, I feel like you don't really need the olive oil or the butter or any milk or dairy at all when you're whipping them. That's the real difference between making whipped or pureed parsnips as opposed to as opposed to just regular mashed potatoes, because you really do need butter and cream or something when you're whipping up mashed potatoes or white potatoes. But I feel like with parsnips you don't. They're just so rich and creamy. So here you go, and I have because we're still getting some great herbs from our greenhouse. I have some fresh dill, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a little fresh dill on top, little crack of fresh black pepper, and here you go. You have these absolutely beautiful, easy, simple side dish. Now parsnips, you can actually roast them and they're delicious. So a friend of mine roasts them with some carrots. They bring out then that really natural sweetness. It caramelizes a little bit. So roasted on a sheet tray like you would carrots or with carrots, fantastic. I have never done this, but I saw a recipe where you can grate them raw and sort of turn them into like a coleslaw. So that would be another alternative. And the nice thing about parsnips too, because like all root vegetables, they last a long time in your refrigerator. So you kind of just put them in loosely in maybe like a little bag, the bag that they might have came in from the market, and put them in your vegetable drawer. And these were from 2 weeks ago. They will last a long time, which is again really nice, because sometimes we buy things, we have the intention of cooking them, and then we don't, and then we end up throwing things away. They go bad. Root vegetables will are kind of like your friend in that way, that they'll last a lot longer. All right, well, thanks again for joining. I hope you try parsnips, and if you do, please message us, and please like our videos, please share our videos with friends and family. And then again, I will probably be back. I should be back next week on Thursday, so I'll bring you a new recipe then. Until then, stay well.